Hello and welcome back to Business Matters at the Hindu with me, K. Bharat Kumar. Last year, Dubai had asked the Indian government to increase the number of seats that airlines from both countries can fly to each other. But India seems in no mood to do so immediately. Why is this? Let's take a look. The number of seats that airlines can fly between India and the United Arab Emirates is 66,000 a week, both ways. And the UAE wants to raise that by another 50,000. But the Indian government has been categorical and said it will not increase air traffic quotas with the UAE. India's Union Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia has said that he wanted India to become an international flying hub and wants Indian airlines to fly more long-haul flights. He cited airindia's recent order that included widebody airplanes and IndiGo's twin-aisle flights to some destinations are indications that the transition had begun. In an interview with Reuters, Mr. Scindia said, India is now at that inflection point. We are going to see an explosion of air traffic in India in the years to come, he said, adding that he wanted domestic carriers to look at international expansion with greater focus. How do these air traffic quotas work? Every country has a government-level bilateral agreement called the Air Services Agreement with another country that it finds lucrative to service. India and the UAE, for example, have an ASA that was last signed in 2014. So that is why aviation sector sources lament that we are in the 10th year and the 65,000 seats per week that was decided upon 9 years ago is obviously not enough. The market has grown significantly. Airlines from the UAE have exhausted their portion of the quota, and Indian airlines are also nearly there. The India head of UAE's flagship, Emirates, says that it is time to open the ASA tap again and allow airlines from both countries to grow. Emirates President Mr. Tim Clark says that India is set for significant economic growth, and this is significant also because of the global gloom that's prevailing right now. And he says the Indian aviation sector will also be a contributor as well as beneficiary of such growth. In his own inimitable style, he says India is going to need airports and airports and airports, planes and planes and planes, and pilots and pilots and pilots. The question he asks is whether India can cope with the growth that is coming its way. He says that Dubai is opening up the visa ecosystem and will be extending work, investment, and property visas, and that Indian workers are bound to benefit from these relaxed rules. How have airfares behaved given all of this? Prices from New Delhi, Bengaluru, Mumbai, or Kochi to Dubai have increased 45 to 50% compared with pre-pandemic levels. After all, as Mr. Clark puts it, the market is ready to absorb at least twice the current limit of 65,000 seats a week as per the current ASA. Who ends up paying the price? When supply is kept at a certain level but demand keeps growing because the market has grown, prices tend to go up, as we've just seen. And it's the end consumer that ends up paying that price. In this case, it's the blue-collar workers who end up paying the price because they constitute a significant portion of travelers between India and West Asia. Plus, new airlines on the block may be impacted too. Akasa Air, which is India's youngest airline, has said that it wants to begin international services by the end of 2023. But it may end up not being able to fly the lucrative India-Dubai route because there are no more seats available as per the current ASA. What could have triggered India's decision to disallow any increase in seats? When both sides have exhausted the current ceiling, such a decision is seen as an attempt to give local operators a chance to focus on their own priorities. And what could those priorities be? Mr. Clark of Emirates guesses that it is likely that the Indian government wants local operators to focus on domestic growth. But he warns that in doing so, India is losing out on an income growth opportunity of anywhere between $800 to $900 million on the India-UAE route. A focus on domestic growth may not be the only reason. We've already seen how India's Civil Aviation Minister wants to see India become an international aviation hub, how he wants to see long-haul flights from Indian operators, and so on. What he likely means is that he does not want to see too many narrow-body aircraft being used by Indian operators to drop off Indian travelers in West Asia. And from where on, the likes of Emirates or Qatar Airways would fly those travelers on lucrative routes to the Western markets. An ideal situation is when an Indian traveler seeking to go to Europe or the US does not have Dubai as a stopover but has a long haul option from any of the multiple Indian metros directly from here onto those destinations. In an interview to the Economic Times, the minister has cited that 86 international airlines fly into India, but that only 5 Indian airlines flew international routes. He said the focus should be on international to international routes that Indian airlines should be flying. But whatever the reason, not revising an ASA, especially after the seat limit had been exhausted, is being seen as protectionist. The International Air Transport Association, or the IATA, which represents about 300 airlines globally, certainly seems to think so. In an interview, IATA Director General Willie Walsh told a newspaper that India's refusal to revise bilateral seat allocations for international flights, despite demands from several countries, reflects an old protectionist India that could result in others retaliating and restricting access for Indian airlines, which in turn will hamper India's ambition to develop into a global airports hub. It remains to be seen whether there will be such retaliatory measures from other countries and as to how those would impact India's economic interests. We'll keep you posted. That's all we have for now this week. Till we meet again, have a lovely week ahead.